Okay, so I thought I might as well do a video on the differential while I still got it apart, assuming it's a very weak point for the car and a lot of people struggle with it. So this is this assembly all back together. It's upside down. It should be around that way. So you can see you got your carbon shaft there. That comes down. You've got your pinion bearing in here, and then pinion there. You can see that. There you go. And crown wheel. Right. So when you turn your shaft, it turns your crown wheel like that. Simple. Ugh, that's heavy. Now, there are a few tips and tricks that we got from Richard Uncles, one of the Fiat Car Club Victoria's presidents or whatever, and he gave us a few tips. Now, this is the old diff that came out of it. You've probably seen this in one of my other videos. It's very thin. It's a 501 housing, so you see how it's very thin here, and it's in general not very strong, and you can see that. You can see how cracked. Now when you compare that one to this one, see it's much more thicker. You know, here got a lot more meat. That's what you want. So this is a 503 housing, or you think, pretty sure it is. So that's what you want. You want to get one that's nice and strong like this, a lot thicker. Then also, if you can, the centre bit here, I think they call it the hemisphere or something like that. If you can get a 503 one of them, use it. This one, that's still a 501 hemisphere, but we've got a 503 one. We'll probably put in there at a later stage, but the 501 one seems to be alright for now. Now, one of the other tips was to, you know, just generally check everything, go over it with a fine tooth and comb for any cracks, any imperfections or what have you that might cause a weak spot and cause it to crack later on down the track. And also it's important to get that pinion down there. You want to get that nice snug fit on the shaft. Now whether you put, I don't know, you've got to make sure it's just a really nice snug fit, because a lot of diffs have been ruined by the pinion coming loose and then chewing off the differential. Another point to make is that the split pin that you put through the end, can't quite get a good picture of that, sorry. Split pin is probably best to cut it off, like cut the ends off, so it'll still hold in there, but it won't, the split pin won't fly open and get caught up in the whole crown wheel and all that. Now, a way to tell that these two housings are a matching pair is by the number stamped on it. So you can see this one's got a 58, and so does this half. So that's how you know they're a matching pair, because originally when they were first made, they were put together and then line bored or drilled or whatever you want to call it, straight through here and out the other side as well. So they've got to be a matching pair to be able to align properly. Because you see this one here, there's no, like that's got a 42 there. And there's nothing corresponding on the other side, not on any of the four lots. So, and you can see when you have it like that, they just probably can't see on the camera, but they're just out of line. They don't match up. There's a big ridge here. So yeah, that's it's important they get the right matching set. Now also, the bearing that's in here, the pinion bearing, that's pretty well sealed off. And a lot of people have issues with trying to get it lubricated. Now, one thing, the easiest thing, would be to use thin oil and just hope that it gets enough oil through through down there. Just want to find a torch for you. Okay, I found a torch on the keys. So, see down in there. It's in that housing, so the housing that goes around there. And you got that little plate there, or shim or whatever you want to call it, that goes behind the pinion. That's where the bearing sits in there, and there's not a lot of ways you can lubricate it. I know Richard said there are some methods of, I don't know, putting a little pipe in, a little catchment pipe to catch some oil that's getting flung around by this, but yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one. We're probably just going to put thin oil in there and yeah, see how it goes. Because it was a new bearing, we had to replace that bearing because the old one was absolutely chewed up and the diff blew up, resulting in that. So that's that. Now the thrust bearing, I think it's this one that he meant, the one on this side. Make sure that's in good condition, because that's one that takes most of the load when the car's being driven forward. So you got to make sure that's in good condition. We still got the original one in there, but it's actually found to be in excellent condition, both that one and the other one. And in fact, it's the same case with our wheel bearings too. They're all in very good condition, thank God. Because I know a lot of people have had trouble replacing them because you can't get one the same size, I don't think. Now, another point to make with these leather seals that you see here and the rear axles, they it's probably best to replace them because they, I don't know, they stop oil from seeping through into the brake chamber, whatever you want to call it, and then oiling up all your brakes and then stopping them from working properly. So I went to a saddle replace and took the old ones in, and he made a new setup. I think it was $10 each, so it's $60 in total. But I think it's worth it because you want to have your brakes functioning properly. You don't want to have them oiled up and horrible. You see, so here they are. You got to soak them in oil for at least 24 hours before you put them in. These have been soaking, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks just because we haven't had time to come out here. But yeah, it's best to soak them in oil. That just stops them from burning out. You know, so they self-lubricate themselves in a way, if that makes sense. Yeah, just now another tip there was to point out, you got to make sure that your cardan shaft is straight. I mean, they all had a slight bend in them, but yeah, you got to make sure it's pretty well straight. And then the bearing that's up in the centre, you probably can't see it again, but there's a bearing halfway up the torque tube, halfway up there. That gets oiled from oil seeping down from the gearbox, so that's how that gets lubricated. But it's also good to check that all your cardan shaft lines up with your axles, the axles that go through here, the 2 short ones, the ones that are up there. You've got to make sure they line up properly, and I think in this case it does, which is lucky. But you've got to make sure of that. And also, its rear castings here, the ones that house the brakes, because the way they're put on is a clamp here under the torque tube, and there's a split here, sort of thing. You got to make sure that doesn't there isn't cracks that travel up here as a result of that split there. So you just got to make sure they're all in good order, and if they are, fix them or replace them or whatever's necessary. Obviously, make sure your bolts here are in good nick. You know, not too long for obvious reasons. If they're too long, they're going to hit this, and that's not what you want. So yeah, well, apart from that, it's just the email that we got from him. Yeah, he said that if the centre bearing comes loose, you've got to make sure the centre bearing that's halfway up the torque tube, you've got to make sure that's held in nice and tight, because he said if it comes loose, you can feel like your wheels are out around and you're going along, you can feel the whole steering vibrating and everything. But yeah, so that's here, and you've got a little bolt here that locks in. The camera would focus, come on. There you go. Yeah, there's a bolt there that just locks into the housing of the bearing, and that locks it in place, so that's all good. I've just Loctited that, Loctiting everything. Any original lock tabs, like for instance the little lock tabs that hold these in place, should be replaced, because the original ones tend to get brittle and, you know, they break off. So this one here, our mechanical friend, he put this in there for us, and he put a little double weld on there, but we actually had to grind some of the weld off so that it'd fit up in there, because it's a very snug fit in there, and that's what you want. You want it to be nice and tight so it won't be able to move around. That's about all, I think. Yeah, when you put the pinion on, he said one way is to put it in the oven, get up to about 200 degrees, and then put it on very quickly and let it cool down. That way I'll get a nice snug grip onto the pinion shaft. And he said you can even put some valve grinding paste in there if you wish to make it an even better fit. Yeah, there's that. Hopefully that helps some people.